So welcome to this first video. We are talking today about the vow of prayer. When you join the church, we invite you to support Keller United Methodist Church with your prayers. What does that mean? Jason Valindi, my co-senior pastor, is going to elucidate us and explain all the details.
Elucidate.
Yeah,
Well, there
it's a
you
big
are,
word.
my friends. So I wanted just to share a little scripture this morning with you. In 1 Timothy, Paul writes, "First of all, then, I ask that petitions, prayers, supplications, and thanksgivings be made for all people." It's an interesting way to write because oftentimes when we think of prayer, we think of all of those things are prayer. And yet Paul is breaking those out into different categories, different groups, different types of things. So I just wanted to offer a very brief kind of taxonomy of prayer because I've discovered over my life that these different types of prayers invite me into different types of relationships with one another and with God. It actually gives me a richer and fuller prayer life. It's kind of like going to a restaurant and only ordering one meal. It's a good meal, but when I see the whole menu, it actually broadens my palate. And so that's what I wanted to share just briefly with you. So the first thing is he writes, I'm going to take him in a slightly different order, but he writes about supplications. And that's a type of posture. It's a type of reaction or relationship rather with God. And what that means to have a prayer of supplication in the biblical sense, it's this idea of literally seeking forgiveness for your sin. That's it. And so you might reflect on your day. There's a practice where you examine your day and you think back through and consider the ways in which you've fallen. And we trust in the mercy of God that there is forgiveness that comes. There's a second type of prayer that he just calls prayer. And what he means by this, what the biblical writers and ancient writers mean about prayer is it's a promise. Prayer and promise, these words etymologically are tied together. And so whenever we're praying, we're making promises to God. So you might start off your prayer life by acknowledging that you have missed the mark. And then make a promise and say, here's how I'd like to remedy that, right? And we know that that's how we apologize in real life anyway. We say, I'm sorry. I did harm and I am sorry. I am going to do this different next time. So that's prayer. There's a third type of prayer practice in which he identifies as intercessions or a plea. And that's what you might experience when somebody says, will you pray for me? Literally, will you pray for me? Like as though I might not be able to pray for myself, so will you pray for me to assist me? And will you join your prayers with me and pray for me in my time of need? So intercessory prayer is another type of prayer. And that's perhaps one of the most common types of prayers that you've experienced. But probably not as common as the most common type, which is just thanksgiving. And that's the prayer in which you just give thanks. And again, a way in which you think back through your day or your time or your life and pause and give thanks. Oftentimes, prayers that you've experienced, that I've experienced in a corporate setting, are really just two things. We start off by saying, Dear God, we address God, we thank you. And that's kind of it. And that's a fine prayer. It's a fine prayer. But in corporate worship, we try to embody all of the prayers. Intercession, thanksgiving, supplication, prayers and promises. And so that's why corporate worship prayers might feel longer or more grand or bigger, or maybe that's why many times you might be intimidated to pray. Like, oh, I can't pray. Well, you absolutely can pray. And so one of the ways in which you can learn to pray is to sample the whole menu of prayer. So you'll in your membership vow of prayer, I would invite you to consider taking a time and think about, how do you pray in supplication? How do you admit fault and wrong? Take a time to consider, how do you pray and make a promise to God to be or to act differently? Maybe there are prayers of thanksgiving that you would offer up, and of course, maybe there are prayers that you have for other people. But take a moment and consider, how rich is your prayer life right now? Are one of those types of prayers at a detriment? You can always talk with a pastor, and we can help guide you in different practices to expand the breadth of prayer practice in any of those areas. And frankly, that's just a handful of prayer practices that exist. There's so many more, and I hope that as you continue in your discipleship journey, you'll continue to discover new and more profound ways to pray to God. So that's kind of it.
So Jason has outlined prayer practices for us. We hope that these are useful to you in your individual practice as you grow in your faith. Just a couple of notes about what we do here at Keller United Methodist Church to help you. Every Tuesday, we have an email that goes out. It's called our Quick News. And in the Quick News are prayer requests. There's just a little list of folks in the church who need prayer for themselves or for their family members. And the way that those get put together is people tell us, hey, I need prayer. So it's a two-way street. One, we invite you to look at the list, like be mindful of it. Look at those names. That would be what would category?
Yeah.
Intercession. Lift the names that you see in the list on Tuesdays or on Sundays in the bulletin. Lift those names to God. And if you need prayer, like if something's going on with you, we really do want to know about that. We really do care. Even if you think, oh, this isn't that big of a deal, like I can get through this. Like that's why we're here. Yeah. That's why we're a community. So a couple of ways you can let us know about your intercessory prayer needs. There's a form on the website, prayer request form, or we have phones and emails. Call the church office, email us, let us support you. We want to be a community and grow together, and the only way we can do that is if we share. So share your prayers with us, and will you please pray for your church family as you see those requests come in. Thanks, everyone.